Hey, this is Ricky Metallica over the best show ever. We're on Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 on The Fanatic, thefanatic.com, and on NBC Sports Philadelphia. This is Ricky's Mailbox, which is going out on YouTube right now. So, hey, take a listen, send in your questions, and we're going to keep doing this all season long. So, when we have enough questions come on, I'm going to come on, answer the questions to the best of my ability, and we'll see how it goes. Let's go, Dill.
Okay. This is from LJ198433. Here's a question for Ricky Bo. Do the Phillies actually win it this year?
That may be the $1,000,000 question that's looming over the city of Philadelphia right now. I believe, I'm a firm believer that this may be their last chance as this core together. I do have a belief in this core. I have a belief in Trey Turner. I have a belief in Bryce Harper. I think their starting pitching staff is outstanding. It really comes down to those 2-3 weeks in October, whether the bats stay alive or go dead. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Do I think they're going to be a playoff team? Absolutely. But as far as winning the World Series, you still got to go through the Dodgers. And no matter how many ways we could slice this, cut this, the Dodgers made themselves better in the offseason. And, you know, the way they kind of hot knife through butter every team last year, it's hard to say that they're better than the Dodgers right now. But in a 7-game series, I'll give them a chance. And if the Phillies get by the Dodgers, I think they win the World Series this year. Absolutely.
Okay. This one is from Luca. Can we please cut Taijuan Walker?
This is the most interesting question ever because nobody really knows what's going to happen to this guy. I mean, there are possibilities that he could get traded. His fastball has been up a couple miles an hour. There's a possibility that he sticks with the team for a little while, and then you hopefully get him to a point where you can trade him. I know there's certain teams out there that need to spend some money. For instance, I believe the Marlins are one of them. They have to spend some money, so they may be a team that you could just kind of drop them off to. I don't know what the expenses would be back at the Phillies. But yeah, I mean, that was a big contract, a tough contract to swallow. He did not look good last year, not even a little bit. And for him to say that he picked up 2 miles an hour and everything's going to be fine, I have a hard time buying that for a full season. So yeah, it very well could happen within this next week that we won't be seeing Taijuan Walker anymore, but it very well could happen that they put him in the bullpen as a long guy.
This one is from Steve. How good can Cristopher Sanchez actually be?
Let me put it this way. Cristopher Sanchez has the height, number one, and the reach that he's letting the ball go 6 to 8 inches further closer to the plate than any other pitchers around. He throws a 97, 98 mile an hour fastball with movement. He's got a tremendous curveball, and he's got a changeup that's Bugs Bunny-like. So in my eyes, I think the Phillies did a great job in signing this guy early, number one, because it probably saved them a bunch of money in the long run. But with Cristopher Sanchez, I think he could be a top-of-the-rotation guy. I think he's one of those guys who just goes about his business and kind of gets unnoticed for that. And if you think about it, when he first came up, he was like, well, let's see if this guy could just get us through 3 innings. Oh, let's see if he can get us through 4. And then all of a sudden, he's cruising through 5 all the time. And now everybody looks at him and he's like, wow, this guy's pretty good. You know what? Sometimes it just takes a little exposure, a little bit of seeing him out on the mound. And then you get a good feel of exactly who he is. The guy has no fear either. I think that's something that you have to give him a huge plus for, because he steps on that mound like he's the all-star. And in my opinion, if you could do that, that's half the battle. And to go out there with confidence every single time, that's another piece of the battle. He checks all the boxes. I think this guy could be legit number 1 or 2 for his career in the big leagues.
This one is from Ed Helinsky. Who, if anyone, might be a surprise cut?
Cody Clemens. I don't know if you would call that a surprise cut, but I mean, he's having a pretty good spring. But he is on that boat. And that boat kind of sometimes it sinks, sometimes it floats. Some of these guys are just in weird positions. I mean, the other guy I'm going to go with could be Garrett Stubbs. So there's a couple guys that are just floating out there. Garrett Stubbs is in a really poor situation because, number one, he has options left, which means the Phillies could send him down to AAA, wash their hands of it, and not worry about anything else. Also, you have a guy in Rafael Marchand who does not have any options left, which means one of these two catchers, and I will tell you right now, if Marchand goes out onto the open market, he's not making it through waivers. Somebody is claiming him immediately. There's people need way too much catching help at the big league level. I think Rafael Marchand will be sucked up in a second. So I got to believe that Garrett Stubbs might be that other guy out, that guy that's going to get sent down to AAA and kind of he would be in no man's land either, unless there's an injury to either Real Muto or Marchand. He'd kind of just be sitting down there floating. So I think those two guys would be the bigger surprises on the team if they don't make it.
Yeah, you already answered half of this next guy's question because he wanted to know who the backup catcher would be. Weston Wilson fan page also asks, thoughts on who's making the bench spots?
I think Arroyo, that's him, right? Christian Arroyo. I think he's going to make a bench spot, which is going to be a little bit of a surprise. Like I said, I think Marchand is going to be there. Sosa's definitely there. Rojas would be another guy there. And it just depends on, what direction you want to go after that. I was just talking a little bit about Cody Clemens and what he brings to the table. Here's the problem with Clemens. He's a first baseman, more or less. You got JT, who could play over there on his off days. Obviously, Bryce is your first baseman. But you also have guys that could fill in over there, as in Kyle Schwarber. Get him out of a DH spot. Maybe you want to use that for somebody else on days. I don't know where he's going to get playing time. So that's why I don't think Cody Clemens is going to be one of those guys. But there's definitely going to be spots open.
This next one's from Eddie T_WCEA. How do you put the past behind you, and when the playoffs comes, don't let it haunt you?
That's a really good question. Obviously, the Phillies haven't done that in the past, considering they went from being in the World Series to losing to the Diamondbacks in the NLCS, then losing to the Mets last year. None of that is really behind them. It kind of sits in front of you, and the only way around that is if you win. I mean, bottom line is, I guess, getting to the playoffs and being relaxed, and I think they should be there at this given time. I mean, most of them have been to the playoffs 3 years in a row. You would think that, it's old hat for them going to the playoffs, and it should be no big deal. But, sometimes you put a little bit too much pressure on yourself, and it turns out being bad. Most guys that are going well in the playoffs just tend to relax, see the ball, hit the ball, and just relax. It seems like the Phillies are really kind of grinding the sawdust out of the bats when they're taking their at-bats. That tells me there's some tension. There's some, I guess, overly eager at-bats in the playoffs, trying to do too much on one swing. You got to trust those guys in the lineup behind you. Do I believe they could be better in the playoffs? I absolutely do, 100%.
And the final question is from our friend Silvana.
Of course.
Who has the best facial hair on the team?
Well, most people would go straight to Marsh. But I just can't see myself kind of in that. Can you see me with that big beard hanging down? I'd be so uncomfortable. Aaron Nola usually keeps his pretty tight. Wheeler keeps his pretty tight. What would you call Castellanos? Would you call his a beard or kind of a half and half, sometime 5 o'clock shadow? I kind of like that look. I like the 5 o'clock shadow look. Not really into the big bushy beards. Not really into the scraggly looking ones that look like you could find a Cheeto in there in a couple days. And it can't smell. And I have a hard time believing that you have this much going on, that it's not going to stink a little bit, especially when you start sweating. So I'm going to go with Casty. I think Casty's the guy I'm going to go with on this one. And that's it. That's it for today. That's our mailbox for today. Once again, you can catch myself, Tyrone Johnson, Savannah Kelleher on the best show ever, ? Monday through Friday, 2 to 6. Hey everybody, thanks for watching our YouTube. If you want to help us out, go ahead and like and subscribe for us. If you liked what you saw, go right over here to our playlists and pick out whatever you want to watch.